The last thing I saw before I blacked out was the ceiling caving in. 1 second, I was stumbling through my smoke-filled apartment trying to find my cat, and the next, the floor shuddered beneath me and I hit the ground hard, coughing so violently it felt like my lungs were turning inside out. The fire had started in the unit below, but the heat was already unbearable, swallowing everything in an orange, flickering haze. That's when he appeared. Through the thick smoke, a dark silhouette burst into the room, bulky with gear, a mask covering his face. He didn't hesitate. He knelt beside me, grabbed me with surprising gentleness, and said, so quietly, I wasn't even sure I heard it, "I've got you." And then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, IV in my arm, throat raw as hell, and my hair smelling like burnt plastic. A nurse hovered nearby and gave me a soft smile when she saw my eyes open. "You're lucky," she said. "The fireman got you out just in time." I nodded, swallowing thickly. "Did they get my cat?" "They found a cat, yeah," she said. "Animal control has her. She's okay." I exhaled, letting my head fall back against the pillow. Relief washed over me, but then something else crept in too. Something strange. I couldn't stop thinking about him. The fireman. I didn't even know what he looked like. His face had been hidden behind a mask, but I remembered how his arms felt as he carried me. Strong, secure, deliberate. Not rushed, not frantic. Like I mattered. It's dumb. I know it's dumb. He was just doing his job. But that moment stuck with me, burned into me more than the fire had. They told me it had been a 4-alarm fire. Most of the building was destroyed. My unit, on the 3rd floor, was a wreck. Somehow, though, most of my stuff had survived, minus the smoke damage and some melted electronics. My insurance kicked in faster than expected, and I moved into a friend's guest room while everything got sorted. But I couldn't shake the memory of that voice, that moment. Him. I started looking up local fire stations, trying to figure out who had responded. I told myself I just wanted to thank him. That's all. Just gratitude. But it wasn't entirely true. Because every night since the fire, I'd close my eyes and hear that voice again, feel his grip on me. And every time I'd wake up with this strange, hollow ache in my chest like I was missing someone I'd never even met. Then, one afternoon, about 3 weeks later, someone knocked on the door. It was late. Around 7. The sun was setting, casting this soft orange light through the living room window. I thought maybe it was a neighbor or a delivery, but when I opened the door, I just stood there, frozen. It was him. He wasn't in gear this time. Just jeans, a dark t-shirt, and a windbreaker that said Portland Fire and Rescue in faded letters. He looked even taller than I remembered. Tan skin, short cropped hair, strong jaw. His eyes locked on mine, and something in my chest kicked. You're the guy from the fire," I said, my voice coming out hoarse. He gave me a sheepish smile. "Yeah." I wasn't sure if I should come by, but I couldn't stop thinking about you either. I stepped back, letting him in, my mind spinning faster than I could process. The apartment felt smaller with him there, the walls closing in, the air thicker, somehow charged with the tension I'd been carrying around for weeks. He hung his jacket on the coat rack, his movements casual, but I noticed the way his muscles flexed under the thin fabric of his t-shirt. My heart thumped embarrassingly fast. I'd spent nights imagining what he looked like, replaying the memory of him carrying me, feeling the warmth of his arms, and now here he was, real, standing just a few feet away. I wanted to make sure you were okay," he said finally, scratching the back of his neck. There was that same calm, measured tone in his voice, but something softer now, something personal. I'm okay," I managed, my own voice sounding ridiculous even to me. "Thanks to you." He smiled, that subtle half smile that made my chest tighten. "You don't know the half of it," he said quietly. "I thought about you every day since that night. I didn't just save you. I kept thinking, what if you weren't okay?" I swallowed, my mouth suddenly dry. I've thought about you too, I admitted before I could stop myself. The words felt like they weighed a ton, and at the same time, like a relief. He blinked, and that small flicker of surprise in his eyes made me think he hadn't expected me to say that. Then he leaned back against the wall, folding his arms loosely. Good. I was worried it might come off too weird, me showing up here. It's not weird, I said quickly, wanting to convince both him and myself. Honestly, I've been thinking about you a lot since the fire. I guess I just didn't know how to process it. I didn't even know your name. He laughed softly, a low, warm sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. It's Ryan, he said. Ryan Marks. I'm one of the guys from Station 16. I felt a strange jolt at the sound of his name, like hearing it made him more real, more tangible than the voice in my memory. I'm Jamie, I said. Jamie Lewis. We stood there in an awkward, lingering silence, both of us unsure what to do next. The smell of smoke still clung faintly to him, a subtle reminder of that night, that moment when he'd pulled me from the flames. It was intoxicating. Finally, he stepped closer. Listen, I know this is sudden, he said, his voice dropping lower, but I'd like to see you again. Maybe not in a life or death kind of situation this time. My pulse jumped, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. Yeah, I'd like that, I said, my words catching in my throat. Then, almost imperceptibly, he smiled that little crooked smile, the one that made my stomach twist, and I knew whatever had started that night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And for the first time since the fire, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. A few days later, Ryan texted me. Coffee? Somewhere quiet? I stared at my phone for a full minute before typing back, yeah, that sounds good. My hands were shaking slightly as I hit send, and I felt a mix of anticipation and nerves that I hadn't felt in years. We met at a small cafe not far from my apartment, the kind with mismatched chairs, warm lighting, and the faint aroma of roasted coffee beans hanging in the air. I arrived early, just so I could have a moment to calm myself. My mind kept replaying that night in the fire, the feel of his arms around me, the sound of his voice promising, I got you. When Ryan walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. No gear, no mask, just a t-shirt and jeans, his hair slightly messy from the wind, and a smile that made my chest ache. He waved, and I waved back, suddenly feeling ridiculously shy. Hey, he said, sliding into the chair across from me. You okay? I nodded but couldn't stop fidgeting with my cup. Yeah, I'm good. Coffee's good. Thanks for, coming. He chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. I wasn't sure if I should. Thought you might think I was. I don't know weird for showing up at your door like that. You weren't weird, I said quickly. Not at all. My voice sounded too loud in the quiet cafe, and I felt my cheeks heat up. Honestly, I've been thinking about that night a lot. About you. Ryan's expression softened, something almost unreadable flickering in his eyes. I've been thinking about it too, he admitted. About you, about what happened, and honestly, about how I felt holding you in my arms. I don't usually feel that way. Not at work. Not ever. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I felt the same, I said, almost whispering. You were calm, strong, like you had me, like I didn't have to do anything, and I kept thinking about that. About you. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. Jamie, I don't know how to say this, but... He paused, and I felt the weight of his gaze, warm and steady, searching mine. I want to see you again. Not just coffee, not just this. I want to see you. I swallowed hard, my chest tight. I want that too, I said, my voice trembling a little. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, the world around us fading, the clink of cups, the hum of conversation. It all disappeared until there was only him, only Ryan. Finally, he smiled that crooked smile, the one I couldn't stop thinking about. Good. Then it's a date, he said softly. And just like that, the tension that had been coiled inside me for weeks began to unravel. Our second meeting wasn't planned with any grand gestures. Ryan suggested we take a walk along the river after our coffees, and I said yes before my brain could overthink it. The air was crisp, the late afternoon sun low, casting golden streaks across the water. The city felt quieter here, almost private, as if we'd stumbled into our own little world. We walked side by side, occasionally brushing shoulders, and every touch sent a spark up my arm. I tried to focus on the sounds of the water and the distant chatter of people passing by, but my attention kept drifting to him, how his shirt clung slightly to his shoulders, how his fingers twitched when he gestured, how his eyes seemed to catch every detail around him, and somehow, they were always on me. "You're quiet today," Ryan said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I'm thinking," I admitted, "about stuff." He glanced at me, a soft smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Stuff about me?" I froze, my chest tightening. "Maybe," I said, letting the word hang between us like a whisper. Ryan slowed, falling in step beside me. "Jamie, I don't want to rush anything. He exhaled, the words heavy, deliberate. "I like being around you, more than I expected. And I've been thinking about you since that night." My heart nearly stopped. "I've been thinking about you, too," I admitted, barely above a whisper. "Every day." I didn't know what to do with it. He paused, just for a moment, then reached out, lightly brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. His fingers lingered, warm, almost electrifying. My whole body went tense, yet I didn't pull away. Somehow, I couldn't. "Jamie," he said softly, his voice low, deliberate. "I want this to be whatever we feel it can be. I want to see where this goes." I couldn't help the smile that broke across my face. Relief, anticipation, and something deeper, all collided at once. "I want that too," I said, my voice shaking a little. He smiled, that crooked smile, and then, almost without thinking, he leaned closer. My breath caught as our foreheads brushed lightly. The city, the river, the afternoon, everything seemed to melt away until it was just us. We stood like that for a long, suspended moment, close enough to feel his warmth, close enough to feel everything I'd been holding in for weeks. The relief, the fear, the longing, the unspoken desire that had started that night in the fire. And then he whispered, so close I could feel his breath on my cheek. "You're safe now, and I'm not going anywhere." For the first time since the fire, I believed it. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and I fell into an unspoken rhythm. We spent more time together, walks along the river, late-night coffee runs, and quiet evenings on my couch. Every interaction carried that subtle tension, the kind that made my chest race even when he was just handing me a mug of tea. One night, I invited him over after work. My apartment still smelled faintly of smoke and cleaning supplies, but I didn't care. I just wanted him here, wanted the space to feel less lonely and more ours. Ryan arrived with a bag of takeout, smiling that crooked smile that still made my heart stutter. "Thought we could have something simple," he said, setting it down on the coffee table. We ate quietly at first, the tension between us a pleasant weight. I caught him stealing glances at me, and I felt a thrill each time our eyes met. After we finished, we lingered on the couch, shoulders almost touching, the room warm and quiet. "You know," he began, voice low, "I keep thinking about that night, about the fire." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "I didn't just save you because it was my job. I don't know. Something about you stuck with me. You mattered." I felt my throat tighten. "I've thought about that too, every day. I can't stop thinking about you. About how you held me." His hand moved, almost naturally, resting lightly on my knee. The touch was electric, deliberate, yet gentle. I couldn't stop the shiver that ran through me. "Jamie," he whispered, leaning closer, "I've wanted to do this for weeks." Before I could even process, his lips brushed against mine, gentle at first, testing, and then deeper, more confident, as if he'd been rehearsing it in his mind all along. My hands moved instinctively, resting against his chest, feeling the strength beneath the fabric. The world outside disappeared. The fire, the hospital, the weeks of longing, they all melted away in that kiss. It was both familiar and new, terrifying and exhilarating, like falling and landing safely at the same time. When we finally pulled back, breaths heavy, eyes locked, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're incredible," he murmured, voice rough with something I couldn't name. You," I stammered, my hand still pressed against him, afraid to let go. "Shh," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. "We'll figure it out. Together." I felt a warmth spread through me, not just from his touch, but from the certainty in his words. That night, for the first time since the fire, I felt completely safe. Not because the flames were gone, but because he was here, and he wasn't going anywhere. After that night, everything changed between us. The tension that had been coiled for weeks finally began to unwind, replaced by something warmer, more tangible. Ryan started spending more nights at my apartment, and our conversations deepened. Late talks about fears, hopes, and regrets. It was different from anything I'd experienced before. I was slowly letting myself trust him, not just with my body, but with my heart. One evening, we sat on the couch, the city lights spilling through the window behind us. Ryan's hand found mine, fingers interlacing naturally. I felt the warmth spread from my hand up my arm, settling in my chest. I realized how much I'd craved this closeness, how hollow the days had been without it. "I can't believe you actually came back," I murmured, leaning my head against his shoulder. "I thought I'd never see you again after that night." "I told you," he replied softly, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "I wasn't going anywhere, not after what happened, not after you." I shivered at the words, the intimacy in his tone. "I kept thinking about you," I admitted, "about how you held me, like I mattered. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head." He turned to face me, his eyes intense, yet soft. "Jamie, I've been thinking about you every day since that night. I wanted to see you, to make sure you were okay. To see if maybe this could be more than just a fluke." The weight of his gaze made my breath hitch. I leaned in instinctively, and he met me halfway. Our lips met, slow and lingering this time, exploring, testing, until the kiss deepened naturally. No hesitation, no fear. My hand slid up his chest, feeling the strength beneath the fabric, while his held me close, grounding me. We pulled back just enough to breathe, foreheads touching. "I want more of this," he whispered, voice low and deliberate. "Not just tonight. I want to be with you, if you'll have me." "I want that too," I breathed, my heart hammering, more than anything. He smiled, a mix of relief and desire. "Then it's ours," he said softly. And for the first time in weeks, I felt truly, completely safe. Not from fire, not from danger, but from everything that had been keeping me guarded. That night, we stayed wrapped up together, talking, laughing softly, and stealing kisses whenever we could. The city outside faded away. The memory of flames, smoke, and fear turned into something else. Hope, warmth, and the thrill of something entirely new. The days that followed were effortless and electric at the same time. Ryan and I fell into a rhythm that felt natural, as if the fire hadn't just brought us together, but had carved out a space in the world where only we existed. We'd cook dinner together, watch dumb shows on my couch, and then linger in the quiet, hands finding each other almost automatically. Every brush of his fingers sent sparks through me. Every laugh, every glance made my chest ache in the best way. One night, we ended up on the rooftop of my building, wrapped in blankets, looking out at the city lights. The air was cool, the hum of distant traffic a soft backdrop, but it felt like the world had shrunk to just us. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you," I murmured, leaning against him, his arm around my shoulder. He tilted his head, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Jamie, I never expected it either. That night, when I pulled you out, I felt something I can't explain, like I'd been waiting to find you, even if I didn't know it yet." I turned to look at him, my heart pounding. I felt the same way. every day since then. I kept thinking about you, wondering if I'd ever see you again." He smiled, that crooked, warm smile that made my stomach flip. "And now you have. And I'm not going anywhere. Not this time." I reached up, cupping his face in my hands. "Neither am I." He leaned down, our lips meeting in a kiss that was everything and nothing like the first. Softer, more intimate, lingering longer. This time there was no urgency, no chaos, just us, the quiet night, and the steady rhythm of our hearts. When we finally pulled back, our foreheads touching, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known since the fire. "I don't want to lose this," I whispered. "You won't," he said firmly. "We've already been through the fire. This us, we can handle anything." And he was right. We'd been through flames, literally and figuratively, and we came out the other side together. I knew, in that moment, that whatever the future held, we'd face it side by side. Ryan smiled again, brushing a hand through my hair. "So, coffee tomorrow?" I laughed softly, pressing a quick kiss to his lips. "Definitely, but maybe breakfast first." For the first time in a long time, I felt safe, alive, and completely seen. The fire that had nearly destroyed me had also brought me to him. And now, nothing else mattered except this, us.